What? Yeah. This is the effort you're getting this week. This is my ghost costume for Halloween. It's been a very long week. At least you're getting a new review of the brand new haunted house for the Atari VCS. Don't come complaining to me that I'm not... Did I just drop my eyes?
Hola, childs. It's time for Funkmaster V's Getting Hip with the Atari 7800, where Funkmaster V, musician, ghost hunter, hat flipper, pro wrestler, and comedian takes you on a tour of all things cool about the Atari 7800. Are you ready to get your groove on? Because it's about to get funky up in here. Wow, Haunted House really came out of nowhere from Atari earlier this year. It was announced with Lunar Lander Beyond and also Quantum Recharged, which I have a review that you can check out of that game. You know, Haunted House came out and it wasn't a recharged game. In fact, it looked kind of, to me, generic. And I guess that's the biggest problem I have with Haunted House from the onset, is it looks like it's going to be Wii shovelware. I kind of feel like, you know, the lead character, she has the worst case of something about Mary hair that I've ever seen. It looks like a cell phone game. You know that cell phone game where grandma kills a bunch of people and hides them in the yard? The graphics look like that. They're not necessarily bad graphics, but it just gives a bad impression. I just was like, this game is not going to be very good. And the other sad thing about it is Haunted House holds no nostalgia for me at all. I don't like the original game. Here we go. I bought it last week. You can still buy it for $14.99. I think that's a sale. I bought it. I sat there and didn't want to play it. And I finally brought myself to play it before Halloween because I just felt like that's what we need to do. The first impressions on this game aren't great. I don't care about these kids. They look like a bunch of dorks. I think they're trying to tap into the nostalgia of the Goonies or Stranger Things, you know, because this game, you know, it starts off with these cutscenes with no voiceovers. It's just, you're just reading. A bunch of goofy kids going to go in to try to save their uncle who got magically disappeared by some sort of satanic house. You don't call the police, you don't call the Avengers, you don't call Ghostbusters. Yeah, a bunch of goofy kids going in there. So, you know, the cutscenes look like it comes from a Wii shovelware game. And the first thing that you see is Spooky. This little Nintendo-looking ghost guy. He's the first thing about the game that looks kind of appropriate and decent. And I was like, okay, now we got a spooky guy here, and he's kind of like Navi to Link. He kind of tells you what's happening in the world. Your friends are all captured. You got to find your friends. You got to find 3 pieces of an urn. It's up to you. And he helps you along the way. But the problem with Spooky is he disappears, and he doesn't even say he's going away. You know, it's like he's telling you what these rooms are about. He's telling you about traps. He's telling you about this, that, and the other. And then all of a sudden, he's gone. And you're like, where the hell did Spooky go? So it's kind of some of these, you know, these first impressions. You're like, oh, this is just not going to be a good game. So past the presentation and the graphics of the game, we go to audio. The audio's not good in this game either. It's very tepid. It's not until the second world where you actually hear audio, and it's kind of like this wailing witch chick that floats around, where you're like, ooh, that kind of creeps me the hell out. But there's no voice acting, there's no really good sound effects, and there's really no good music. I mean, music is what makes horror games and horror movies. It's the sound. I make videos now, I make movies, full-length feature films that are horror comedies, and I found out when I was making those, hey, audio is more important than visual. They let us down there too. So we get to the gameplay. Now, I've dogged this thing for 3 minutes straight. Guess what? This thing's freaking amazing. You heard me. It's not perfect. There's some glitches and there's some problems with it, but when it comes to gameplay, I love this game. It's similar to Luigi's Mansion. It's like a light RPG. It's like a stealth game. It's a survival horror game. It's a puzzle game. It's kind of a Twitch game. It's got a lot of things going for it. If Nintendo made this game with their characters, the production value would be off the charts, and this would be a classic for everybody. But there's still some things you got to scratch your head on. Like, this kid has a lantern, and apparently it's like a powerful shotgun magical thing. How did that happen? We don't know. But let's roll with it, because this game is tough. It's a lot like Days of Doom in the respect that they want you to play and die repeatedly. And unlike a lot of classic Atari games where you die and you just have to restart over from scratch, every time you die and continue, you level up a little bit. In this regard, you get currency throughout the game. Not the coins. The coins are pretty worthless. But you get these like gem, these pink and blue gem gimmicks, and you get to go visit the shop. You get when you die, you go back to the beginning of this hall. You'll see a butler there and a couple of rooms, and you'll go see this shop fella, and he can level your character up, and that's kind of pretty cool. You can do things like improve your stealth, improve your health. Hey, that rhymes. If it rhymes, it's true. You can increase slots. You can increase your stamina. Blah, blah, blah. It's like a Cialis pill. Each room is its own puzzle. I think that's the coolest thing about this game, is when you walk into a new room, the doors have a magic force field, and you have to clear the requirements to escape the room. It could be you have to find an idol in a chest and place it upon the altar and not get killed. You may have to kill every enemy in the room, which is tough because this is not really an offensive game. The room can be flooded with bad guys, and you have to survive without dying for 60 seconds before the magic force fields are taken off the door. You can stop a thief. You can be transported in something called Ghost World, which is a little bit more trippy than a regular room to clear. You can have to destroy ghost chains on lamps. Just take my word for that. It's actually a pretty fun way to clear a room. One of the nice little touches is that your weapons and your power-ups are all kind of kid-based. You have roller skates. You have cookies to boost your health. You have, like, toys to fight the monsters with. And I think with this kid theme, even though I'm not crazy about these kids, it's kind of a cute way to go about it. I think the controls are good. I think they handle great. With you have to use the Atari modern controller if you're playing on the Atari VCS. You can't use the classic. There's just too many buttons going on. Each time you play the game, it's completely different. I originally thought the rooms were procedural and they kind of created themselves. However, it's more like the map layout. The way the rooms are stacked are different. Sometimes you'll run into some familiar rooms that you kind of run into and you're like, oh. Sometimes you run into human beings like chefs and butlers, and you're wondering why are they in this house that is, capturing people and keeping them prisoner. Who knows? Maybe they have good health insurance or something. Sometimes you go into a room and it's a boss battle, and the boss battles are pretty unique. Sometimes you go into a room and there's a gigantic power-up there for you. Or sometimes there's a shop inside the game itself. You never know what you're really getting into, and that's kind of the fun of this game. Is it's different every time. It's not easy at all. When you defeat a room, or when you clear several rooms, or when you beat a boss, you really feel like you've done something significant. You have 4 friends to rescue. You have 3 urns to find. And then you'll rescue your uncle and be the lass of the lane. There's a lot of little things in this game I don't understand why. I just think it's wasted time. You see this with developers sometimes. Like, you can put a lot of time into powering up your stealth. I never had a problem with stealth. I've never leveled up my stealth. I don't know why you would do it. You can switch between kids after you save them, but I put so much time into the girl with the first date hair that I didn't really want to switch off to anybody else. Besides, these losers got themselves captured. I didn't. There's also like a guy that collects Atari games. Do we need this? Do we need another game that says, hey, this is the history of Gravatar? I don't know. Maybe you need that. I don't think I do. Without further ado, here we go. The final score for Haunted House for your Halloween needs this year. Graphics, I'm going to give it a 2.5. That's pretty low because I think it just looks generic as hell. Now, I will say this in defense of the graphics. The rooms all look pretty interesting, and I think that keeps the game feeling fresh. And the bad guys are interesting, and even the bosses, which Atari is world famous for having pretty generic bosses. The bosses in this game are pretty interesting. Sound is really, really bad. Audio is supposed to enhance your experience. This doesn't do that, especially in a horror game. In fact, the only time I was really freaked out was the Wailing Witch thing that I told you about earlier. It's like a crying ninny. Gameplay 4.0. I think the controls are great. The only problem is this game doesn't feel completely bug-free. There are certain things here and there that are pretty damn irritating. It's just, there's some glitches with this game. You'll see. Originality, I wouldn't say this is interpretation because this was nothing like the 2600 version of Haunted House or even the one that came out on the Atari 50th celebration that Digital Eclipse did. I will say Originality, I'm going to give this a 4.5, even though it's a little bit like Luigi's Mansion with the lantern/vacuum gimmick. I think this is much more interesting. Value, you're going to play this for hours and hours, maybe 15, maybe 20, maybe 25. That's a lot of value for $15 on an Atari system that really has a lot of Twitch games. And my reviewers tell it I'm going to give that a 5 to mathematically bump this guy up to a 4.0. And that, my friends, is going to make that the second best game you can get on the Atari VCS as far as my opinion is concerned on the library that I've reviewed already. You can see I threw in Failsafe, which I reviewed on the Atari 7800 Forever website, which is available, and that's down there too. So you can kind of see right now all the games I've reviewed so far are pretty darn good. I hope you have a happy Halloween, and if you like Halloween, make sure you check out my horror comedies, The Hike, WJHCAM, and hopefully streaming any moment, Camp Smokey, and you can always buy these DVDs and also our merchandise at bigandfunkyproductions.com. We do a weekly podcast, the Atari 7800 podcast with Silverback, and that sounds like his freaking dog. Every time we do a podcast, his dogs go crazy. Mine's going crazy right now. And also every game reviewed for the Atari 7800 at Atari7800forever.com. You guys be good, y'all. Hey, farts, I almost forgot. If you want a free game on the Atari VCS, all you got to do is this. It's Haunted House 2600. Yeah, big deal. But it's still kind of fun to have a free game. Plus, I love the graphics, the box art graphics on the interface. Anyway, look here, right here. Zoom in on that shit. That's how you get it done. Bada boom, free game from your man Funkmaster.